If you're into sports betting, BetOnline is where you should go win money today. Whether it's live bets during games or futures for who you think will win the championship, BetOnline has all the latest odds, news, and information for all your online sports betting needs. Visit the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So before the next big game, head over to BetOnline and start playing today. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. It is the Arizona Cardinals centric specific show where we, of course, cover the Arizona Cardinals. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Javon J. Love Adams. And with me, as always, is the one, the only Ed Smith. He not only was able to play professional baseball, but he also played in the National Football League. He is vested. That is important for y'all. If you know, you know. He's vested. So how you doing, man?
Man, I'm trying to recover from this back surgery. I feel like I've been going through training camp myself, all sore and everything. But here we are, bro. We inching toward that first preseason game, -1, only 3 to go before the eventual kickoff of the season. So these being some very important weeks coming up for some of these young men.
Yeah, so I want to get into that for sure. Kind of lay this out for today's show is want to talk about, since you've said this many times, that when it came to the roster, you were one of those guys that had to kind of fight and claw for every bit that you got. So I want to talk about the from the perspective of somebody trying to make a roster and what these preseason games can mean, and of course during the week in terms of with training camp. I also want to talk about, we had our last week we had Earl Burnett join us, and so of course he joined us on our radio show as well on Saturday. And we talked about Kyler Murray. We were talking about the Cardinals in general, but we also talked about Kyler Murray. He went out to that red and white practice, and want to talk about what he didn't see and get your thoughts on what that could mean when it comes to the Cardinal season. The first, we may or may not get to this one. I'm just throwing this one out there. Possibly the first depth chart of the preseason came out. What does it mean, if anything at all? And then, of course, we have that first preseason game with the Cowboys coming up on Friday. I want to get your thoughts on what you hope to see and what you expect to see in this first preseason game. But before we get to that, I don't know if you've heard, but apparently former NBA player Lamar Odom may be returning to professional basketball in Spain soon. And I was reading in a press release about how he started taking a pH balancing alkaline supplement called Balance 7, and that's helped him to bounce back from his hospitalization in 2015. And he even said, "I have an enormous amount of energy, which is good for me. It's important when working out. I always need energy to level up." And I couldn't agree more with Lamar. And after watching him fight Aaron Carter in July's celebrity boxing match, I think it's safe to say that Balance 7 is working for him. So cool thing is, we've got a promotion running with Balance 7 right now, where you can go to their website, balance7.com, and use the code Bleav at checkout, and you'll receive a free 4-ounce bottle of My Smooth Skin with any purchase of Balance 7 products. And that product retails at $13.99, so I'd say it's worth it. Again, that's head to balance7.com and use the code BLEAV at checkout to get in on the promotion. I know I will. If it worked for him, it can work for you too. Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. So, Mr. Ed, before we get to the to training, I mean the first preseason game and all that stuff. Again, we had our brother Earl Burnett that joined us last week, and he talked about going to the red and white practice and what he hoped to see. And we've talked about this on the show before as well. What he hoped to see was Kyler Murray under center a little bit more. Now, I've had this debate with my oldest son a little bit, and he doesn't, I guess, hold the same view as me, and that's all right. He's definitely a Cardinals fan, but what Earl didn't see was Kyler Murray under center. I came across a PFF.com, ProFootballFocus.com article that came about. It was around the middle of June that talked about the efficiency ranks on the offensive side of the ball, both running and passing for all of the NFL teams. And so when they talked about the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm going to just read this, so bear with me, folks. Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury is sticking to his air raid roots, and we can see that in his heavy use of 10 personnel, and that's one running back, no tight ends in the backfield. So 4 receivers. He runs that 25% of the time in terms of the snaps over the past 2 seasons, where the NFL average is 2.5%. Also, Arizona tries to stay as spread out as possible, plays with fast tempo, but not moving its receivers. And we've talked about that was definitely a topic of discussion last season about how the wide receivers are, with DeAndre Hopkins just in the same spot. He doesn't move at all, and so that's one of those things to be able to address. And Kingsbury decided to cut down on some of his tried and true air raid principles after his first season in charge, and it led to better efficiency with the second-year quarterback at the helm. And then here's something: the spread could lead to the Cardinals running the ball at a relatively efficient rate by creating bigger running lanes, but getting into bigger personnel sets and formations to run deeper play action concepts might be the key 2021. Your thoughts on how important is it in your opinion, for Kyler Murray to be under center a little bit more or a lot more this upcoming season? And do you think we'll see that?
We've talked about it. To an extreme, Jay. I'm not a big fan of the spread. I definitely am not a big fan of this never having Kyler Murray under center, especially when you're looking at the type of running back that we might have in James Conner. I think you make him totally ineffective, just like we did with our running back crew from last year. If you're going to be in a read option mode all the time with the center or quarterback not under center in the pistol formation, it doesn't suit running backs who have downhill capabilities, and that's their strength. So, in saying that, if we're going to go spread and, with all this formation with Kyler not under center, you're not going to utilize, in my opinion, your running game to the fullest. It, once again, will lead to a lot of frustrating games where they try it. It doesn't look like it's working. Then what do? You abandon it altogether. And now we get into these scenarios where Kyler's dropping back, throwing the ball 45, 50 times. You're only running the ball, 20, 25 times a game. I just think it's crucial and critical to establish a line of scrimmage, especially with this offensive line. You go out and you spend a pick with, you get this center, from the Raiders. I know that hurts you guys. Yeah.
It hurts me for sure.
Yeah. You get someone who can organize and get this group, kind of tougher, maybe a little more physical, but you're not going to utilize them because you're going to have everything as a read option, which doesn't allow your offensive line to fire off the ball, which doesn't allow your running back to even know he's getting the ball until it's either stuffed in his belly or pulled out. So, you really can't create any downhill. And like I said, to me, we had Earl on the show Saturday, and then he went to the red and white practice, and he reported to us right away that he didn't see Kyler under center not one time. And, in a lot of situations, he's just saying, well, maybe they're just, decoying the media.
That's what I thought. That's the first thing that I thought. How often does that happen, or did you immediately cross that out of your mind once it came into your mind?
Doesn't even jump into my mind because we're not game planning for anybody right now. Right now, it should be the opportunity to try a little bit of everything because, it's early, preseason. We want to get all the things and dust them off the shelf. And what do we need more than anything? Dusted off the shelf is our running game with our quarterback under center. Getting him every snap he gets under center with an opportunity to read the defense from there, then drop back. And if it's play action or whatever it is, turn around and practice that. Now you have to read the coverage on the fly. And I know because of, we call it heightism here, but, that is a deficiency in his game. How are you going to get better at it if you don't practice it? And if it's not in your repertoire, you can't wait till the season. All of a sudden now we're going to start working on that. That should be such a high priority, meaning getting him under center as much as humanly possible to start working on play action, start working on stretch plays, start working on him getting back into his drops as quick as possible, even if it's not in play action, so he can get a look at that defense and figure out the coverages, et cetera, et cetera. But if we're going to be doing the same old thing with 90+% of our snaps out of read option and, like I said, the formation when the pistol, then I said we're in for more of the same that we've seen thus far, and it's not encouraging to me.
Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals again, Javon Adams and Ed Smith. So as we approach the preseason game, preseason game number one, what do you expect to see? Could it be that they run in the old okie doke and that we'll see a little bit of them under center? Or what do you expect to see? Because from what Cliff Kingsbury has said is that Kyler will play. We don't know if he's going to play a series or two. I wouldn't expect a whole lot, but we don't know how teams are going to take this three preseason games as opposed to having four, where the third is that real dress rehearsal. So what are you expecting to see, and what do you think that you will see?
That is the big mystery, because obviously this is our first run through with the 3 preseason games schedule, 17 regular season schedule. I'm not encouraged that we'll see a whole bunch, meaning first preseason game, you're not going to throw these guys out there, meaning your starters for a lot of activity to begin with. And, from what the reports have been so far, I don't see them, shaking a whole lot of things out of the tree, meaning trying a whole bunch of different things. And we all know we're creatures of habit. And I do think Kingsbury is probably very comfortable with his style of play, meaning play calling, and what he's comfortable with going into the season as far as his packages and stuff like that. I don't know whether we're going to see anything much different from what we saw toward the end of last season, Jay, meaning the offense, was very horizontal, wasn't very vertical. I'm not sure, what we'll see in terms of the running game. It's all a big mystery. We might not see it. At least the dress rehearsal might be the second game now, with the third game being that, last game for, guys trying to make the back end of the roster. I don't think you're going to go into that third week pushing it to the floor because of the threat of injury. So I think with the shortening of the preseason by a game, we're going to get a little bit of Kyler in that first team in this first game, but it's going to be very minimal. And then, the second game, we'll probably get to see more of what we can expect on the regular season. Another thing to remember here, this is Dallas's second game already, minus their quarterback too, though. So they're dealing with their own issues in terms of who they're going to have on the field. It's going to be, in my opinion, interesting to see how these teams – now some teams won't even worry about getting their starters out there. That's just the way they roll. But with us, I think it's really important, especially with people in different positions, new additions. You want to, like I said, you want to figure out what mastery Kyler has of this offense. And if you're going to get him under center, this is the time to do it. You don't want to break that out at the beginning of the season. This is the time to do it. That's the reason why they call it preseason.
Now, there was last week? I think that there were a couple of stories about practices being cut short. Some people, one team in particular, I forget the team, even cut their rookie because the rookie was a little bit too physical with one of the starters. So what I'm talking about here is of course training camp and trying to make that impression on the team. If you're one of those guys that's trying to make the roster, trying to be on that depth chart when it's all said and done, take us behind the scenes with coming into a team, trying to impress, or if they have a good impression of you, trying to maintain that good impression to end up making the roster. Are there any things that come to mind in terms of the things that you had to do to be able to stand out, to make sure that you were on that final 53?
Well, first and foremost, as soon as you sign with the team, hopefully, situations for me, I was a free agent. I'd signed in February, March, and from that point on, I wanted to show my face at the facility as much as humanly possible, right. Because familiarity, is something that can be an advantage for you. You don't want to be popping in June or July when camp is getting ready to start, a stranger to the organization. So first and foremost, those off-season workouts and programs are immensely important, especially now because they've cut the contact and the physicality of everything down so much. A guy like me, Jay, I had to get in there, and even though I didn't want to hit and like to hit that much, every opportunity I had to go out there and pretend like this was, even if it was just half-speed drill, I wanted to be going as close to full speed without contact to show them I was here to work, because you only have so many opportunities. And even with the extended camps and things we had back in the day, and then you get into 4 preseason games, even a player like myself, I was waiting until the third and fourth quarters to get in there sometime to even show. And then you're almost like, well, who's even watching at this point? But, the coaches are, obviously, because the film never lies and never goes to sleep. But for these young men now, your opportunities have been slashed even more. So you're talking about so few opportunities to get out there and make that play that turns everybody's head or lets them know, hey, that dude, look at that, So, it is so important now not just to be engaged during these preseason games, but even every practice, every meeting. You want to make sure you're answering every question. Like if a coach asks, what's our assignment here? Or you want to be Johnny on the spot with all the information and let them know, hey, I know what I'm doing. I just need an opportunity. Problem is the opportunities are being shaved because of the lack of preseason games are being cut down and the lack of even physicality during the camps. Remember, these new agreements have it where they can't even hit consecutive days in a row, whereas we used to hit twice in a day. We'd hit twice on Thursday and come back and do it twice on Friday. It didn't matter. That's why they call them 2-a-days. So now these young men, if you hit on Monday, you can't even put the pads on. Let me say that again. You can't even put the pads on Tuesday if you put them on and hit on Wednesday on a practice. So, like I said, it's one thing, a lot of dudes like to go full speed when there's no pads on and stuff like that, but coaches know that stuff. They see that stuff. The dude who wants to be out there flying around when we all have shells on, then all of a sudden you put the pads on. You know that old saying I always use, Jay, body like Tarzan, hit like Jane,
Right.
So
right.
These are, this is even more imperative now with everything being shaved down. When you have those opportunities, when it comes time for this first preseason game, you're going to see some dudes out there, they're going to be running around like that rabid dog looking for that piece of meat because they know they might not get too many bites at it. And in order to make a team, might be your only shot.
One of the things that's interesting, and I hear on the local station, one of the local stations here in the Valley where Ron Wolfley will talk about one of the things that his brother told him, the bit of advice that he gave him was shut up, listen, do what you're told, but also pick a fight with the baddest guy in the locker room. Did you see any of that, or do you think that that's what was happening with some of these tales of some of these players that are going a little bit too hard to get the attention of their coaches, whether on the offense or defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I ever saw a dude do that. You didn't want to pick on the big junkyard dog most of the time if you could help it. I think what's happening, though, is some of these veterans are really in veteran mode, meaning, look, I got a big contract or I'm playing for a big contract this year. I don't need some snot nose out here, one, trying to show me up, and the other thing is injure me when this isn't a time for injuries. This is a time for me to be, getting through my workouts the way I need to, getting through my drills. And then as soon as the lights turn on September, whatever the first weekend in September is, that's when it's go time. What happens is, like we just talked about, some of these dudes are out there just trying to, open an eye, make an impression. And a lot of times that will go in a very negative way. Like I said, for the veterans who are not there for that, they're just there to get their work in. And like I said, they don't like being shown up either, especially in some of these drills. So, every now and then, and I don't like to use the term, but you have to put the rookies or the young dudes in their place. So sometimes that's where some of these hiccups and these, fisticuffs and things like that, that's how they happen. But, and the other thing is it's a physical game, and sometimes dudes are just not in the mood for it. And all it takes is one dude not to be in the mood, and it can mess everybody's day up. So.
And one of the things I've noticed on the wire is that the Cardinals have been, I think it was yesterday or even today, they brought in a few players on the defensive side of the ball in terms of on the defensive line. How were you ever one of those guys that was brought in after camp had begun? Or when those guys are brought in that way, is that to send a message to somebody to be able to say, hey, you need to tighten it up a little bit, or are teams just doing their due diligence with trying to find the best players to fit their scheme?
Yeah, I was usually there at the start of camp. I did get released 1 year and then ended up hooking on with another team, but that's just how the waiver wire is used. As far as teams are always looking to supplement either the bottom half of the roster or the bottom half of a position. If they feel like they're weak in a position, heck, they want to take a look at every cornerback there is out there, just in case they can find a dude that maybe everybody else missed on. At the same time, you need those special teams guys, et cetera, et cetera. So it's one of those situations where teams from the very first day, actually all the way through the offseason, Jay, that's why you see moves that go under the radar a lot of times. They're looking even during the offseason. It just becomes more and more imperative during the season, because now once the season starts, you got to prepare for injury. You got to prepare now for COVID and things like that, taking parts of your roster out. So you want to have every person you can have evaluated. You'd rather have your eye evaluated than getting the reports from scouts and stuff like that. So it's just one of those things from the first day of the season of the year, or whatever the calendar years for the season, all the way through that very last week, they're bringing dudes in. I've been around teams where week 14, 15, I'm like, well, we got 2 weeks left. What are they doing? They're evaluating for the following year, bro. It never stops. It never stops.
Gotcha. Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. So leave me with this, the depth chart. The first preseason depth chart came out. How much stock do you put into that? What does it mean? Does it hold any value with where players are before the first preseason game, going into the second, third, et cetera, et cetera?
It means a whole lot for them dudes that don't know whether they got a slot locked down. And, it for the dudes at the top of it, if you're fighting for a starting job, that probably means even if you don't make the team, you're on the roster. This the dudes that are sitting in those 3 and 4 spots, depending on how deep and the numbers that the teams are keeping. For the Cardinals, let's take, for instance, my position, tight end. We all know, one, they don't utilize it enough. They don't value it, in my opinion. So they might have a 2 and a 3 slash, and the third one might be a long snapper. So that's not even something they consider a highly competitive position. Now, if you're the 4th or 5th dude on that roster right now, that depth chart, that means that more than likely at the end of one of these weeks, you're going to be looking for employment somewhere else, So, as far as the depth chart, like I said, everybody, there was a time, I'll give you a quick story. One time I was in the coach's building, and it was right around toward the end of training camp, and I had a meeting with my tight ends coach, and I ended up walking by the big room with the big board with the whole depth chart. Brother man saw his name at number 3. I was happier than a pig in slop, because I knew we was keeping at least 3, right? So I knew, now that didn't mean, hey, Easy has made it. That didn't mean that. That meant at the point in time, there was at least 2 dudes behind me. Right. And if I kept working the way I was working, then Easy was going to be all right. And that was the Super Bowl season, actually. So Easy was all right from day one all the way through the end of that one. And that was a glorious. Now, if I'd have walked by that room, Jay, and I saw myself in a 4 or 5 spot, I wouldn't have slept too good that night.
Gotcha. Understood. So Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. We bring this to you every week. And then, of course, next week we'll have at least some footage to look at in terms of looking back at the first preseason game and see if there's anything that we can glean from it. Because I swear there are times when I can think of the receiver escapes me, but he flashed a couple of times in the preseason last season, but didn't do anything during the regular season. But anyway, so on behalf of the one and only Ed Easy Smith, I am Javon J. Love Adams. We will see y'all next week. Make sure to tell a friend about what we have going on here at Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. And as we always like to say around this time, we are presented by Bet Online. But as we always like to say around this time, you can.
Till next week, be easy out there.